And now, only on KGRA Radio, this is the Starborn Connection. Join your hosts, Michael Austin Melton and Julia Yesner-Weiss.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another Starborn Connection show. We come to you every week right here live on KGRA, Alternative Talk Radio, the best place. I wouldn't want to broadcast a show from anywhere else on the internet. This place is number one to me. Now, the nice thing is, if you miss our show tonight, or if you want to hear any of our back shows, all of the archive shows are now free. So all you have to do is to go to the website, kgraradio.com, easily found. Everything is fantastic. Julia, hello. How you doing?
Oh, I'm doing great. What a day. We've had a couple beautiful, clear, chemtrail-free days.
Wow.
Beautiful,
I know.
Warm weather in October.
Blue sky, the old-fashioned blue, which is nice.
Yeah.
And my producer, Bill Skywatcher, how are you?
And a beautiful night tonight as we near the peak of the Orionids meteor shower. And so hopefully there'll be a lot of activity. And hello to everybody that's enjoying this show on my YouTube channel.
It's nice to be here, guys. It's nice to be here, everyone. We have a great guest tonight, but I have to apologize because part of the show that I was going to do, I have some fresh information from the alien, the EBE Oli, but you know, it's getting so popular. So many researchers are starting to look into this. Ilona and Ivana Podraska's contact, that I've already been, I guess maybe it has been pointed out that my interpretations might be a little off. But, you know, hey, that's what they are. They're interpretations, and everybody's entitled to one. So I'm going to have to put that off till next week. I do want to say, though, and Julia, you'll be surprised to hear this. I want to let you all know that my good friend Nancy Tremaine, who has been a guest on the Starborn Connection before, has published her story, Symbiosis, A Love Beyond Space and Time. It is a story about Nancy's lifetime relationship with a reptilian being that she came to call Mr. Mr. is, to this day, her friend, her teacher, and sometimes her lover. In Symbiosis, she shares the information she receives in the form of downloads, as well as loving messages she has been asked to share with humanity. And now, from my perspective, Nancy's story is absolutely fascinating, and I can tell you from personal experience, because I helped her work on the book, so I know it's good. And you can find her book on Amazon.com right now. So that's good.
So it's out. Yeah, I was wondering when her book was coming out.
Oh, yeah.
Great.
I got
I love her. She's great. I met her many times.
I got my complimentary free copy. So I'm going over to make sure everything's okay. And I have a little chapter in the back on PTSD. So. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Well, anyway, since we're at that point, and I can't do any of the Oli interpretation tonight, let's get going. Okay. Now, in our past, there are stories of everyday people discovering something or inventing something that makes a major impact on our society and indeed the world. Some by accident, some resulting from the work on something completely unrelated to what it was meant to be discovered. Now, I want to just give you a couple of examples. For example, the first implantable pacemaker. Now, this guy, while working as an assistant professor in electrical engineering at the University of Buffalo, reached into a box of parts for a resistor to complete the circuitry while building a heart rhythm recording device for the Chronic Disease Research Institute. Now, the one he pulled out was the wrong size, and when he installed it, the circuit it produced emitted intermittent electrical pulses. He associated the timing and the rhythm of the pulses with the human heart, after which he soon began experiments to shrink the equipment and shield it from body fluids. And there you go. Other ones, microwave oven, inkjet printer. When a Canon engineer rested his hot iron on his pen by accident, ink was ejected from the pen's point a few moments later. This principle led to the creation of the inkjet printer. So people are stumbling on things all the time, or they're looking for one thing and they find another. Well, tonight we're hosting a gentleman who just might be added to that esteemed group of exceptional people who stumble upon a discovery that changes the world. In 2015, William Lawrence made a serendipitous discovery in the realm of physics. He had an idea that concerned communicating with ghosts, but when he created an experiment to analyze the solar spectrum of our star, he discovered messages from beyond the Earth. William got busy working on this, and after reviewing the evidence and researching quantum communication platforms, which I looked at, and my eyes are still spinning, he came to the conclusion that the messages he was receiving were of extraterrestrial origin. Now, what is interesting about this part of the story is that after William reached his conclusion, he was visited by a large transparent sphere with a black substance swirling around inside. They're very, very interesting. And many more sightings took place after that discovery. And it seemed as if he was being targeted by extraterrestrials for making this discovery. Whether good or bad, I don't know. We're going to find out from William. Let's hear more about this. Allow me to introduce Mr. William Lawrence. William.
Hi, Michael. Hi, Julia. Thanks for having me on tonight.
It's great to have you here. I was fascinated with this. I looked at the quantum communication platforms and communicating with light, and, you know, it's something that I really never looked at in physics. I'm very interested in physics, but I never knew that they were working on deriving communication data from light. That's pretty interesting, except, of course, through optic, you know, what we have now, fiber optics. So, what were you doing when you discovered this? I know you said you were working with the technology to try to communicate with ghosts, but what happened? Tell us the story.
Yeah, actually, in 2010, I was living in California, and there was sunlight coming in through my window. So I decided to make a rainbow, and I had a black refrigerator next to the window where the light was coming in. So I projected and refracted the light, projected it to the black surface, and I was taking digital photographs. And then I had a home video recorder, and I was looking through the photographs on the digital camera, and I noticed some very strange objects forming as I zoomed into the light that I was projecting, the spectrum. So I documented it on camera in 2010, but then fast forward, at that time, I didn't think too much of it, but in 2015, I found the camcorder that I used to document it in 2010. So I decided to set up my own experiment and try to duplicate what happened in California. By then, I went outside, I grabbed a piece of black metal, steel, and I had a water bottle with a little bit of water, and I then began to bend the light from the sun and refract the light onto the black surface. And there I would take digital photographs of the light on the metal, and then I would analyze the photographs. Now, weeks prior to me doing this experiment, I was telling some of my friends, you know, I am going to set up this experiment and I'm going to be able to communicate with ghosts. I originally thought I would be only able to communicate with spirits. A month goes by, and on the very first day after analyzing the evidence, I came across something that was startling. It was a crystal clear photograph of what appeared to be a human-like entity, and it showed his eyes, his nose, his mouth, his shoulders, some type of energy where his heart would be, but he was completely not transparent, but he was non-physical, so it looked like a spirit. and he had a large white forehead. He was the first image that I seen on the photograph, which then I decided to go back and look at all the photographs again, because I'm like, I can't believe this actually worked.
Yeah, wow, jeez.
And I was in shock mode. I was expecting to see something, but I wasn't expected to see something so graphic. And so I went back through the photographs, and one of the very first photographs before he appeared was, it looked to be like an advanced reptile. It had large gold reflective eyes. It had no nose. It only had 2 nostril holes. It had an upside down mouth and a big, large brown head. That was one of the early photographs. But now I continued the experiment for 2 years. I was running this experiment daily. Each time I could get access with sunlight, I would run the experiment for an hour a day and analyze the photographs. And over a 2-year span, I collected over 40 unexplained photographs in the visible light spectrum of our star, the sun.
That is really pretty amazing. So what did you do with it at the time? Was it something that just shocked you, or did you start researching it further?
Correct. I wasn't into extraterrestrial and stuff like that, and I was not expecting to see anything of extraterrestrial nature.
Yeah.
And once I did, I had to analyze the evidence. I went and formed my Bent Light Facebook page, which was formed the day of discovery, after making the discovery. And I went public with my methods, and I went public with the results. And then once I realized it was extraterrestrial, I looked online to see what the protocol was. So I contacted NASA and sent emails to NASA, and then I sent emails to SETI Institute in California. And that was pretty much it. I tried to just communicate my results. In the beginning, I wasn't getting much feedback from anyone. SETI Institute finally replied, and then they banned me from their social media sites, and they banned all my research from their pages. They deleted it. And basically, Seth Shostak sent me an email back saying it looked like I was doing nothing but taking an image of a reflection of a bumper of a car. So they dismissed it right away, which to me was a little strange, because now in June of 2016, they're doing the exact same thing. They just came out with their laser SETI project, which they will be analyzing the spectrum. So they build a device which has transmission graded glass on the top to break the light into a prism. And then that light is then projected into a digital camera, and they can process the light just how radio waves work. And now we're dealing with visible light communication. There is not much information on the web about what we are discussing when it comes to analyzing light and finding information in visible light. But we have to remember that radio is a form of light.
Mm-hmm.
So that means
everything's on one long spectrum.
Correct, the electromagnetic spectrum. So radio is almost the size, the frequency bandwidth for that is like the size of a football field. So then you project the radio out and it's out there. But with visible light, it's more compact. It's almost the size of a quarter or a bumblebee, and it holds over 100 times more data than radio.
Have you done any research lately? Have you taken any more photographs?
The experiment has been offline for almost a year. I think December was the last experimental time. I've relocated, and I was in the middle of a remodeling, because I remodel houses, so I just had to remodel my first house. So I've been very busy, but the remodel job is almost done, and the experiment will be back online in a matter of weeks.
Well, I think that's pretty awesome. Now, you're not a scientist per se, correct?
Correct. No, I paint houses. I do construction. I've held a lot of different jobs. I was a beekeeper for 2 days. That didn't last long, but that's what I do, is paint houses. But as I got into this area, this field, I realized there is no SETI searches. looking into extraterrestrial messages in our solar system. Now, they've been scanning the skies and looking at distant stars, but what I have seen and noticed is that we are neglecting our star, the sun.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, yeah. Well, that's what I meant.
Yeah,
when
they
I
don't
opened...
pay too much attention to the sun.
No, they don't. They don't.
Yeah.
But that's what I was talking about when I opened the show. You know, here you are, William, somebody who stumbles upon something that might just be great. I mean, I know they're not looking, NASA and SETI are not looking into it with any serious intent, which, it strikes me because it really, I mean, some of the pictures that you sent me look really, really wild. I mean, I can see things in there. But that's what I was talking about. Sometimes just regular Americans like you and me stumble upon something that just becomes great. And I really hope that this does become great. Now, you did a lot of work, or you were kind of like self-taught in quantum technologies. Give us a little insight into what you know about them and how they kind of affected your discovery.
Yeah, well, in the beginning, once I had to figure this out on my own and I realized I wasn't going to get any assistance from anyone else, I started digging, and I dug deep. I found that in 1979 that the U.S. Navy was patenting and using photons to transmit information from space. So they were encoding data into light and then bouncing it down to the ground. So I do know there's a lot of visible light communication technology which is currently in use, but it's in use by our militaries where they're not where light is less subjectable to being for other people to intercept it. So it's harder for other people to get into it. So they use that because it's safer. And if you fast forward from the 80s, that was the only information I could find then. A lot of scientists right now are currently using photons and encoding, and we have quantum computers now that are coming on to light. And what they do is they're encoding data into these photons, and they're able to then transfer this data at high bandwidths and then entangle the photons with quantum entanglement, which is still being in discovery as we speak. And then you could transmit data without transmitting. It's superluminal communication, or quantum superluminal communication, where you could send data without sending the data. So you could encode data into one photon and have another photon on the other side of the universe, and you could communicate instantaneously with each other regardless of the distance apart. So now, with all this new technology that's coming out, it's very difficult to even understand how it's possible. But now they're still taking the data that they're encoding and they're translating it into binary. So they're putting the information into binary ones and zeros. And instead of ones and zeros, now a zero can be a one and a zero. So now they doubled the amount of data that they can put and crunch into a photon. So with this said, the information I'm receiving in the visible light spectrum is real-time data that is not changed into binary. So what these other civilizations that are probably much further advanced than we are, they're able to manipulate the light and entangle information and data, so real time, like live video, which they could see you as you can see them. Wow.
So it's actually two-way, which is, well, that's kind of scary, really, because I don't know if they can. Now, yeah, if they can see us and we can see them, is there any way that we can pinpoint location, where they are, or anything like that? Does the light hold that data too?
Correct. With the right technology, you could possibly trace it back. I'm almost certain. But here's the thing. When I stumbled upon this after reading the quantum technologies, when you're sending information in light and it gets intercepted, you are then alerted instantly. If someone else were to intercept that communication, then you would be alerted and it would tell you where it was intercepted at. So that way, whenever I went out to run the experiment and intercepted these messages, they knew instantly. So the first message, the first image I took, I caught them off guard. They didn't know I could see them. There was a man standing with a long robe, and there was a bald man kneeled down wearing a black shirt, and he was kneeled down in front of the tall man with a robe, but he was holding a bowl in his hand. And then the tall man with the robe was washing something in his hands, and it looked like something red was dripping down underneath his hands. And now this came in full detail, but remember, the objects that appear in my images are smaller than the face on a dime. Like, the images that appear in my images are smaller than a half inch. They're very, very small.
Wow.
So you have to zoom in to see them in the light. So that was the first image. I caught them off guard. After that, every single photograph I take, they're literally looking at me as I'm taking the photograph. So they are acknowledging that they're being seen. Also, none of the images have to be inverted. None of the images have to be flipped upside down. And none of the images have to be edited. So, like, the objects and the beings that appear show to have some form of symmetry, just like us human beings. We have one left side and a right side. So,
pardon me. What's interesting is the fact that after you discovered this, someone visited you, or somebody or something, a large transparent orange sphere with a black substance inside. Well, tell us about that. Must have been really, I don't know, I would have been really upset, scared.
it was actually quite fascinating. I was in the backyard, and at this time, it was a couple of months after the discovery. And, I'm always looking to the sky for answers, because I know whatever I'm communicating with or I receive these images are coming from above. So I would always stare at the sky at night or any time in the afternoon, and it was just about to get dark, and I saw this orange ball-like object start coming towards our house. And my wife was there. I called for her, and it came all the way up till it was almost in the backyard. I'm looking at it, I'm pointing at it, and as I go to walk towards it, it kind of just starts going east. So it was headed north, but then it stopped, and then it starts moving east, and I just watched it until it got out of sight. That was one of the many visitations.
Yeah, you had said that you had a lot more sightings. Were they that... I don't know. Were they that close, or were they? How did they come about?
It was frequently, just about weekly. There were multiple sightings. I bought a new camera so I could try to capture them on film, and I actually caught one on camera, which I have pretty detailed. But other than that, I was just driving home because they were coming pretty close. I was driving home from a place where we were playing music at, and me and my drummer, and all of a sudden a white light came over the top of the car and then shot right into the road in front of us and disappeared. And I was driving him home, and at this time I don't drink, I don't do drugs, I'm completely sober. And I just looked at him. He was in shock. I said, "Did you see what I just seen?" He's like, "I don't know what I just seen." And
Yeah.
it was pretty wild. But I try not to discuss a lot of these personal moments that I have, because I have no evidence, to go with it.
Right. Except, of course, for the images. How do you process them to bring them to the size that they were when I saw them?
Yes. So basically what I do is I take the images, because you cannot see anything as you're doing the experiment. The instructions are on my page. The method, everything has been public. So what I do is I use a webcam. I bend the light, I project it onto the metal, and I take digital photographs of the light on the metal. And then I review them on my laptop. So I look at them on the laptop, and then what I do is I pretty much zoom in to where the object is at, or where the unexplained image is. But what you're seeing on the image is pretty much the hardware that I'm using. If you notice, there's like a black metal in the image, so the objects only appear on the metal. They don't appear anywhere else.
That's fascinating. It's pretty cool. So, are there other scientists using the same technique? You had said earlier that they were experimenting with light. Can you tell us any more detail about that?
As far as SETI searches, the only two I know about is the one SETI Institute is using now with their Laser SETI project. And they have this device, which is very similar to the device that I've created in Method, and they are analyzing the spectrum. And they're splitting it up with, like I said before, transmission graded glass on the top, and it breaks the light. And so they're running a project there. There is a man in Ireland who is building a device to intercept intergalactic communication frequencies. And his device looks similar to the Nikola Tesla coil. And he's going to be... Yes, his name is Dr. Eamon Ansbro of Ireland. Interesting. And what he's going to be trying to do is intercept messages in a higher frequency than radio. So what I'm noticing is a lot of these SETI Institute, and then now here in Ireland, a lot of your extraterrestrial searches are going to start leaving the focus of radio waves and start looking to the focus on this new technology which is made available, and that's visible light communication technology. Now NASA is sending up their own, and NASA's been using this technology and testing it in space already, which they're almost able to stream 900 gigabytes a second worth of data through light. But they're going to be using this pretty much new form of communication with all their new spaceships that they send up there and satellites.
Yeah, that's going to be revolutionary, I'll tell you.
So this just to reiterate, with the light, it doesn't matter how far the ships are. It's the same time communication. There's no delay, like with satellite.
With the light, you're able to stream more data, but it still moves at the same speed as radio. So you're just able to send more data faster. And now that's just with lasers. So if you had a satellite and you're sending information with the laser, you could send gigabytes and not megabytes, and it would still arrive at the same time.
Though. It wouldn't be
there would still be a slight delay, yes. But scientists right now are working with experimenting with quantum entanglement, where they're able to entangle particles, and also I think Albert Einstein said it was spooky action at a distance.
Right. Anyway, you had said when you started, when you first came on the show, when in the information you sent me, that you were interested in the paranormal. How you thought you were going to communicate with ghosts or the other side. How did you become interested in that, and why did you want to communicate with them?
When I was younger, I had a lot of things unexplained happening to me, and many different things that I couldn't explain, even growing up in my house. And then as I got older, I was 18 or 19, I had interaction with what seemed to be a dark gray being, not from Earth, but it was a human spirit. But he was not very nice, and for a week he would hold me to the bed once a week. He wouldn't let me move, and it felt like a bumblebee was inside my head, like vibrating really fast. And then, like 3 weeks later, he came out the back of the wall and showed himself to me, and he was like screaming, and I never went back to that house ever again. And ever since then, I've always been into it. And at this time, growing up, as I was getting a little older, you had shows like Ghost Hunters, which was really big then. Right. And I was just always into spirits. So I was living in Long Island, New York. So I would, go ghost hunting a lot and capture spirits and ghosts and entities. And I captured one painting in a house in Levittown, New York, Long Island. I was upstairs, and I just felt the presence. I've always been connected. I could always feel when something's around. So I decided to just set up my camera in the closet next to the room I was painting. And as I went to walk away after I set the camera down, huge spirit, almost 6 feet long, came flying right out before I could even leave the room.
Wow.
So I captured that on footage. So I've always been into the paranormal and seeing the unexplained, but never in a million years would I ever connect the dots and see, like, wow, the paranormal is connected with the extraterrestrial. Therefore,
because it's both interdimensional. Yeah.
Yeah.
And through my study, I've realized that just our soul alone could be considered extraterrestrial.
Well, because, it doesn't stay here after it's done with us. We move on.
And we are made of stardust, so we are the aliens.
Everything is energy and light.
Right. Now, how did it really baffles me. How did you think that you could use light to communicate with spirits and ghosts? How did that come to mind?
In the beginning of the show, like I said, in 2010.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
There was just light coming in through my window, and it was bothering me, and I had a water bottle sitting next to me. Yeah. So I was like, let me just try to make a rainbow and take a photograph of the rainbow. And I took maybe 5 or 6 shots, and then I'm zooming into the colors and the lights, and then that's when I realized there was things inside the light that shouldn't be there.
Mm-hmm.
And then years later, I redid I grabbed what tools I could find and try to duplicate what I did then, and to my amazement, these things showed up in detail, graphic detail.
Now, in the material that I asked you to send me, you have something in here that refers to dark matter and neutrino communication. I really have never heard of that. Can you enlighten me about that?
In the very beginning of this discovery, and this is, I still assume it could have something to do with it. It can't be ruled out. Now, I believe that the discovery I made with these beings being able to appear in light, they may be using some type of neutrino or dark matter to communicate. And neutrinos are like ghost-like particles. We can make them here on Earth, and we can also, the sun makes neutrinos. Every second, millions of neutrinos are passing through you.
Right, pass right through us.
And they're ghost-like. But the only thing with scientists is they can't detect these neutrinos. They know how to make them. They know where they're made, but they cannot detect them because they weakly interact with matter. Now, so scientists are basically on a ghost hunt. They're looking for a ghost-like particle, but they're not thinking like a ghost. They're still thinking that they're going to find something physical, matter, something they can hold or grab. And what they're not understanding is that in the digital realm of light, when you take a photograph, these ghosts can leave a imprint into the digital photograph so that you might not be able to see it with your eyes, but after you take the photograph, it appears in the photograph. This may be what I'm detecting as well with the objects that are appearing. It could be a form of neutrino communication that weakly interacts with matter, but I'm able to capture it not with my eyes, but with the digital photography.
That's fascinating.
It really is.
Yeah.
What are your future plans on developing this any further, or are you happy with what you have, or what's the next step for you in developing this technique?
Yeah, it takes a lot of practice, and it takes a lot of dedication and man hours. My next steps, I've released the method. I have people around the world, trying the experiment. My goal is to communicate the results and get others looking into this discovery so they can do it on their own. And once I get confirmation from them when they can find or discover what I discovered, then we could go from there. As for myself, I'm going to continue the experiment within the next few weeks. And I really look forward to getting results. I ran a test experiment last week. It looked pretty promising. So I'm going to continue to analyze the light over the next year or two, or whatever it takes. And as long as I continue to communicate the results, I get other people looking into this phenomena, we'll have more window of opportunity to get someone to investigate or look into these unexplained photographs as actual evidence that we're not alone.
Have you gotten any feedback from anywhere else from the people that are doing this also?
Well, like I said, Seth Shostak sent me an email. It wasn't very promising. He kind of blew it off and dismissed it. I talked to Eamon Ansbro. He said it was an interesting discovery. I talked to him via email, and he said it was an interesting discovery, and it was pretty short, and said, wish me luck. I've been discussing this research with people like Steve Bassett and Grant Cameron. Mm-hmm. And supposedly Grant Cameron said he would look into it. Steve Bassett told me just put it all together, put it out there, and just hope that it gets accepted and people look into it. So my only goal, is to communicate the results, let everyone know that to be aware that this technology is available. The government's already using it, and we need to know that visible light communication technology exists. That would be how we will make contact with another civilization, and I'm almost 100% certain that the evidence that I have is already enough burdens of proof to prove not only the discovery, the hypothesis, the theory, it's the physical evidence of extraterrestrial life that exists not on Earth. So all I can do is just continue to teach people how to do this and continue to do it on my own.
Very interesting. A lot of people will hear something like what you're doing, and they will poo-poo it, but actually they're like, oh my God, I didn't realize this, and take it away and work on it themselves without anyone else knowing what they're doing. I think it's a great thing, and you're getting the technology, out to other people to check it out, and you're developing it. But overall, what do you? I know disclosure is just something that is being held on to very tight. I don't know when they're going to tell us. Well, of course, we already know, but I mean, to hear it publicly from the government source would probably. I think humanity would say, yeah, we know about it already. They think we're going to go crazy and start ripping our hair out. I don't think that's going to happen.
No. People are going to be, so what?
Yeah,
I have to do my laundry today.
Yeah, that's what my wife says anyway.
I know your wife says that.
Yeah, I'd rather clean out a drawer. I know they're here. So, overall, what do you think this discovery means to humanity? Is it going to, increase or decrease the time that we have to communicate with others? How is it going to work? How's humanity going to benefit?
Well, that's a interesting and great point and question. I can tell you this, if we are able to communicate with another civilization, they will be able to teach us, technology. We could stop using resources. We could find a way to, like, for example, the hurricane in Puerto Rico. If we had the UFOs and extraterrestrial technology, we could put all the bottled water in a UFO, and we could blink our eyes, and it would be right there hovering in Puerto Rico. So the technology would be the most biggest impact for humanity. But not only that, we're talking about ourselves when we talk about extraterrestrials. So we have to bring in, when we leave Earth, we travel somewhere, and we know that somewhere is out there. So not only will we here on Earth be able to communicate with the other side, there's a good possibility that this technology will give us the ability to communicate with the people that we love who have already passed away.
Wow, that would be great, huh?
That would be really cool.
thus, with this technology, death would become an illusion. Therefore, if you knew when you pass away, like, you'll be able to communicate with the other side, you would be able to speak at your own funeral.
Oh, wow.
So weird.
No LCD screens with, JPEG files with us talking about it. That was one thing they did. They have the tombstones with an LCD screen so that, you can sit and watch your relative talk to you and stuff.
And the problem that humanity is facing now is, I would have to say, religion. We're divided. We as human beings are one species. We may look different, but culture and religion is really dividing us and keeping us from connecting to each other, which in this day and age with technology, I have followers from all around the world, which is just remarkable. I have a guy in outside of Saudi Arabia, a physicist there, who's actually doing the experiment. Wow. And it's just fascinating to me how small this world really is. And if we can make contact with this other civilizations that are out there, we will know we're not alone. And then maybe the people on Earth will stop thinking so small and realize, hey, we need to do something different, because there's other people out there who are watching us. So it's a game changer.
What about, Stephen Hawking came out saying that if we should leave ET alone because they're violent and they're nasty and they want to take us over. How do you feel about that, having made this contact?
Well, you see a lot of that, and I've read his comments. I've never once reposted anything that has to do with Stephen Hopkins because of a lot of the negativity, but I'm not discrediting how intelligent he is, because I'm sure he's very intelligent, but there's just some things that people build up a belief system in, and I don't have a belief system. I'm trying to follow the facts here, and not once have I had a negative interaction with these beings. They seem to come in peace. I asked them once while I was taking photographs, are you guys here what are you here for? Are you friendly? And they sent me a photograph of a stuffed animal that I had when I was a little kid, one of the gremlins. Wow. One of the gremlins from the movie Gremlins appeared in the light. So it was almost like they could read my whole entire childhood, my mind, like they're trying to ease my feelings about them and say, hey, we come in peace. So they're very peaceful. And the entities I found humans, and I found advanced reptiles, which would be considered reptilians. But they're not, a lot of people are saying, oh, the reptilians are evil to this, to that. You can't believe in this.
No,
everything is good.
There's good and bad in every race.
That's right.
There's no race that's all bad and all good. Even Palladians, there's bad and good Palladians. The good ones just happen to be very spiritual. But there's there.
I live by the phrase "as above, so below." I mean, there's good and bad in everything.
The Emerald Tablet by Thoth. And on your regards to Stephen Hopkins, he thinks that if we're going to send a message to them, then they're going to come and eat us.
All right. Right.
Then he's discrediting all the people that have seen and witnessed UFOs. We know they're here. We know they're visiting us. UFOs are here. The extraterrestrials are always here. And we're still here. So it's like, we know they're there, but they're not interacting completely with us. And the reason why, I'm not sure, but I can assure you they're not using radio waves.
Man.
So what about the Emerald Tablets and Thoth? Because I hear about them a lot. I've read about them.
My research with the Emerald Tablet came into play. One of my followers sent me the tablet because I was in my car. I was leaving work, and at 3:33 in the afternoon, my radio started blinking. So I started videotaping because I document anything unexplained ever since this discovery, because a lot of things were happening. And my radio started blinking, and it was sending these symbols on my radio screen. And when I looked at the video and analyzed it, and it's funny because the song that was playing was Space Song by Beach House.
Oh.
Yeah, it was so crazy. 333, the radio's going crazy, Space Song is playing, and then it says 1499. and then it displayed an unknown language, which I wrote out. I'm not sure if I sent it to you, Michael, but it's on my page. And the language it looked like hieroglyphics on the first, and then the last. So the very first symbol was like a tree or a leaf, upside down leaf. And then the 3 symbols next to it were like numerical symbols. And then the last symbol was like a horse. And it looked like hieroglyphics on the actual radio. So the closest symbol we found was on the emerald tablet.
Wow.
Yeah, it was very strange.
Now you talk about on your website, you talk about water having the ability to retain information, the memory of water.
Yes.
Yeah.
Scientists have realized that, in about a 1 droplet of water, you can store a lot of different movies, thousands of movies in a droplet of water. And water can be like memory. And light, we all know light is information. And you can encode data into light. So the Earth could be some sort of living library. You have the sun, which is sending the data, and the water, 75% water. The water is collecting and holding the information.
And crystals. Crystals have information in them, I believe.
Correct. You could store information into crystals. These are all things scientists have been discovering, which people have been talking about for millennium, but scientists are discovering it and using it for some of their new equipment.
Now, on your website, you also have evidence. Can you tell us about the evidence that you have so that people can... I really want them to jump on your website because, to check this out. It's just incredible.
Yeah, those were all the early photographs from the first 2 years of this experiment. And basically, all you're looking at is sunlight projected onto a piece of metal. And, I don't believe there's descriptions on the website. If people were to go to Facebook, you could find Bent Light, and you could go to the extraterrestrial evidence, the evidence, and then under the evidence, all the images are there plus descriptions. But as you can see, in the very first photograph with the human, remember I told you the human,
right?
The big white forehead, the eyeball showing, nose, mouth, his like chin on the bottom and his shoulder blades, and it's crystal clear. There is no way possible that this image can be disproved, debunked, regardless. There's no way to disprove the claim that you're not seeing something unexplained, because light is information. And throughout all the evidence, you will see even strange objects and ships. I had 3 sphere-like objects, like UFO balls, were appearing. And then in one, a pyramid, a floating pyramid. Another, there was one that looked like something from Harry Potter, everyone was saying. And then on the upper right, there was an actual motorcycle helmet that appeared in the actual light. And all these images are smaller than a coin, so the detail of the images are almost laser precision.
Yeah, I'm kind of paging through them now, and it's really interesting.
Yeah, I am too.
Because you see a whole bunch of things in here. I mean, there's one that looks like somebody kind of orbiting a planet.
All right, hold with that image.
Faces, like I see faces.
Yeah.
The one that you said, the one that looks like someone orbiting a planet, I believe that is there's in one of the images, there was an alien being riding on a beam of light. And in the middle of the photograph, there was Galileo's spyglass, like his old telescope, the old style telescope. And then on the right side of the photograph, there was like this ball that looked like the Earth. And what was remarkable about the image is the alien being, who had like little arms but longer legs, he was looking into the rear end of the old telescope. And how the spyglass appeared was, to me, a message saying, hey, you're seeing us and we're seeing you. It was almost like these beings are trying to communicate and send messages without speaking. And it's funny that we say this because Seth Shostak from SETI Institute has actually predicted that if aliens were to send a message to Earth, they would try to keep it simple. They wouldn't encrypt that message, and they would make it easy for us to understand that they would send pictures, images.
Wow.
And that's Seth Shostak with SETI Institute. And then with METI International, which was formed to send a message, messaging extraterrestrial intelligence. METI International was formed in the very beginning of 2016. After I contacted SETI Institute in 2015, they banned all of my research from their pages in August. And then right after they banned me, they formed METI to send a message back. So to me, it was like, wow, a message was received. Now let's send a message back. And they're using light to send the data back. So they're going to be sending information out and beaming the information to space using lasers, because that's the new technology. So METI International, Douglas Backhoff, he said that any message we get from extraterrestrials is going to look like an ink blot test.
Interesting.
A cosmic ink blot test. And if one thing you see that's familiar with my images is that's exactly what they look like, an ink blot test.
I was just going to tell you that, that there are some here that, I'm a psychologist, some here that look like ink blots, Interesting. Wow.
And now all the beings all the beings, the extraterrestrials, or all the images that appear, if you notice, they're not perfect symmetry, but they all show symmetry. Even the gold reflective eyes with the nostril holes, he has 2 nostril holes, 2 gold eyes, and depending on which way they're looking, you can see the symmetry which is with them, and only intelligent life can have symmetry.
Yeah, that's true. I'm really I'm just taken aback by some of these. I mean, there's one that I just came across, and I'm sure you know them all, but it looks like someone standing there, and they've got this projection coming out toward this blot of light. Pretty interesting. It does look like a figure carrying something, which is interesting. What are the next steps in this discovery? What are you going to be doing?
Communicating the results. So that was Steve Bassett sent me a message back, and he said, all you can do is continue to communicate the results and just hope that the right people see it and investigate. I personally feel the evidence that I've already achieved is beyond mind-blowing and definitely worth looking into as far as the paranormal extraterrestrial connection. But my goal, I've already been visited recently within this week. My goal is to continue the light, and I plan on getting some very detailed evidence this year. And rain, snow, it doesn't matter. I'm going to be out there and I'm going to get more evidence. The evidence I have already, to me, is far beyond the burden of proof that I need to prove the theory. But since I'm not a scientist with the background in science, I'm going to have to work harder, I guess, and I will continue to gather evidence.
Well, it does sound like you're teaching yourself about the quantum world, and I think you've really stumbled on something. It's just amazing. Do you think that maybe, and this is just a question I'm throwing out there to you, do you think you might try other frequencies of light? For example, the visible light spectrum is one, but you've got ultraviolet, you've got all different light sources on the spectrum. Do you think it would be possible to use the other frequencies as a source for some of this information?
That's a good question, and I would say that we need to be testing every single frequency in the electromagnetic spectrum that can carry data and send information. So I would suggest, infrared, ultraviolet, and every single spectrum. It needs to be analyzed more thoroughly, and it seems visible light has really. There's not many experiments with the solar spectrum. I tried Googling it. I can't find anyone using our sun as an experiment. They do these tests in the lab, but when it comes to solar spectroscopy, I don't even know how to say the word. But when it comes to dealing with the solar dynamics, not many people are analyzing the light here on Earth that is coming from our sun.
Wow, interesting.
But
listen, I want you to hold on to that thought, because we are crunching up against our commercial break time. So you're listening to the Starborn Connection, and we are located at KGRA Radio, www.kgraradio.com. Come and join us. We'll see you on the other side.
Need a new car or truck? Then don't miss the grand opening of Wasatch Rides in Layton, Utah. Tuesday, November the 7th through Saturday, November the 11th. Doorbuster blowouts. 2009 Saturn Vue, $4,995. A 2010 Jeep Patriot, $6,995. A 2014 Ford Focus, $8,495. Doorbusters. About a 2017 Toyota Camry, just $15,995. Doorbusters. Need a truck? How about a 2013 Ram 1500 for $16,995? Wasatch Rides. A massive inventory. Don't miss these amazing deals in this 5-day grand opening event at Wasatch Rides in Layton. Low 2.99% APR. 0 down. 0 payments for 90 days. Don't miss the early bird specials. First come, first served. While you're there, enter the drawing to win a 2008 Chevrolet Aveo. 5 days only at Wasatch Rides, 1969 North Main Street, Layton, Utah. Doors open at 9 a.m. November 7th through the 11th. WasatchRidesAuto.com.
Our world is a world of mysteries, strange disappearances, unusual happenings, mysterious phenomena. And this November, you can learn about the greatest mysteries of our time by joining us on the Mysteries Cruise. Enjoy several days at sea and attend exclusive private lectures with leading personalities like researcher Rosemary Ellen Guiley, author of more than 49 books including The Gin Connection, podcaster Jim Harold, host of the Paranormal Podcast, and writer and researcher Micah Hanks of the Gralien Report. Set sail this November 8th through the 13th, 2017, aboard the Crown Princess and sail with us into the heart of mystery. Make your reservations before time runs out by visiting mysteriescruise.com today or reserve by phone at 877-642-4308. That number again is 877-642-4308. The mysteries of our time await you. Visit mysteriescruise.com.
Well, Jason, I've got to tell you, you're pretty much everything this company is looking for in an entry-level candidate.
Great.
Your resume isn't quite what we're used to, but you've got a fantastic work ethic.
Thank you.
And I'm impressed by how you carry yourself.
So, should we talk about the job?
What? The job? Oh, sorry. Yeah, I have no way of recruiting or even meeting you. This interview didn't happen.
It may sound ridiculous, and that's because it kind of is. There's a huge pool of talent your company is missing out on. Meet the grads of life. Who are they? Talent worth knowing about. Young adults of unique determination and experience. An ideal fit for your company in an entry-level position, internship, or even mentorship. They might not have every qualification you typically look for, but they're exactly who your company needs.
Man, we really could have used him.
Don't miss out on a resource many innovative companies have already discovered. Go to gradsoflife.org to learn how to find, cultivate, and train this great pool of untapped talent. Brought to you by the Ad Council and gradsoflife.org.
You listen to us, and we listen to you. And so does the CIA. KGRARadio.com.
Welcome back, everyone, to the second portion of the show. We're here talking, pardon me, with William Lawrence about his discovery, which is really fascinating. Over the break, we were talking about people telling you that this was nothing but pareidolia.
Correct.
Yeah. Can you explain that to our listeners? Something.
Yeah, in the beginning, in 2015, when I originally came with my results, I went public right away, and I got a lot of negative feedback. I can't tell you how many people, and scientists too, that told me that I was wasting my time. You seem like an intelligent guy. Don't waste your time with this. And everyone was telling me the same thing. They kept saying that the objects that appear is nothing more than pareidolia. Now, to define pareidolia, it's basically when you see a familiar face in an object like a tree or a cloud or a face or a formation of rocks or anything on Mars and Earth. Now, if you were to Google pareidolia, majority, I would say 95% of pareidolia claims are objects larger than a basketball and almost to the size of miles. Like when you see some figure on the moon or Mars where you see the formation, you're talking miles apart. Now, with the clouds, if you see a face in the clouds, now that's chances are it's quarter-mile distance. They're all physical objects. Now, with the images, the objects that appear in my photographs are smaller than a coin. They have laser precision detail, and they only form in the light. Now light, we know, has been proven to be information data. You can encode data into photons and transmit information and data in light. So if unexplained beings that appear in detail in my photographs are appearing, there's no way to prove that they're not what they are with any claim by science or scientists using the word pareidolia, because we know light is information. So there's really no way to disprove my claim of detecting messages in light.
Interesting. I'm wondering if you might. What have you? Let me rephrase the question. I'm having a hard time putting it together. Have you gotten pictures of spirits or other dimensions that you can discern that kind of tells us that this is something that we can use across the entire spectrum of light, or the entire spectrum of potential life, I guess?
Yeah, well, it seems that any intelligent or advanced civilization in our universe capable of communicating with us has been around much longer than we have. So if we're able to develop this technology, we will have the power of knowledge and to be able to understand not only the questions that many people have asked, where do we come from? How do we get here? Where do we begin? Or where are we going? All these questions that people ask can be answered as long as we communicate and trust what we're seeing being communicated to us. Our soul, like we just said earlier, our soul could be nothing more than technology. If light is information, right, and data, and we're using this quantum entangled photons and all this quantum revolution going on right now. If light is data, our soul is light. And that means our soul is technology to transfer our consciousness to another realm. And then we become physical in another realm again. So then you could be physical in another galaxy and sign up to go to Earth. Then you transform your consciousness, you transport it in a soul, and you're beamed to Earth. You get to live out 100 years here, and then at the end, you beam yourself back. Like the soul is carrying the data, and the consciousness is the data, and then your consciousness and thoughts are then transported. So there's a lot of different questions that could be answered, and I try to take a scientific approach and look at everything from the scientific point of view as far as when it comes to my research and what I've discovered. But when it's so controversial, it's very difficult to make any headway. But I plan on having all those answers within the next 2 years.
Yeah, and I think you will too. It's really very fascinating. I'm still kind of like going through the pictures here. I wonder if it'd be cool if people out there were doing this and we could have them call in. We'll have that soon, I'm sure.
I have a global album where I've had a guy in Texas. I have a guy in Manchester, England, who sent a really cool photograph.
Oh, you have other people taking pictures. That's good.
Yes. And what I do is I review the photographs that are sent to me, and then if they look interesting, I post them in the global album on Bent Light on Facebook, and I can post theirs. The one in Saudi Arabia was very interesting. It looked like another gold reflective eye being, but it wasn't as detailed. I've been doing this experiment for 2 years, and sometimes they appear, sometimes they don't. I went 4 months doing the exact same experiment, and not a single result. But I kept going, and I kept doing it. And then after the 4th month, it was like near November or December, that was when just out of nowhere, they started appearing again. And when they appear, then you get more sightings. The sightings are more frequent, so they're in the area. So it's like certain times of the year and certain months are more active than other months, and this may have to do with the magnetic field portals that are in between the Earth and the sun. What it is these portals, they're called X points. NASA has been researching these X points for many years, and they have them all mapped out. When these X points open up, they connect our atmosphere with the sun's atmosphere. Therefore, data can travel much faster from the sun to Earth, and that may have some type of connection to why sometimes you're able to receive images and other times you're not. We talked on the break about Tesla.
Oh, right, yeah.
He was receiving unexplained signals that he captured, and he actually thought they were people on Mars. But he went on, I read his notes, he went on to describe, there were some months the signal would come for days, and other weeks and months the signals would come for days or weeks, and then sometimes a signal would come only for like a brief hour. I believe those signals that he was collecting, I believe they too were connected to the magnetic field portals. So whatever processor that he developed, which is sort of to what Eamon Ansbro in Ireland is using for superluminal communication, quantum communication, is similar to what maybe Nikola Tesla was using. So he may even receive the same signals that Nikola Tesla was receiving. I believe they too are connected to the magnetic field portals, and everything falls back to our sun. I do not understand if all these radio telescopes in the world that are searching for extraterrestrial intelligence, they scanned over 2.5 million billion stars in the universe, but not one time, I find it hard to believe, not one time have they pointed these telescopes to our sun to see what they would receive.
Interesting.
And I definitely believe the sun is being overlooked. Now, there was a physicist in Canada. His name is Bora. I forget his first name. He did an experiment in 2012 analyzing 2.5 million stars in our the stars near us. What he found was out of 2.5 million stars, 234 stars looked abnormal. They were sending signals from these stars that were abnormal. They didn't look right. And the 234 stars that were acting a bit strange are exactly the same spectra as our star, the sun. So they did not go into detail of why the stars were doing that. They do believe it was extraterrestrial nature, but they have no way of proving that it's extraterrestrial. Now, my theory is with this, they're continuing to look at these stars at distant places, but if they found that 234 sun-like stars are acting strange, sending these pulses of information, there's no reason why our sun wouldn't be doing the exact same thing. So that means these stars may be connected into a intergalactic network of data to where they can beam data back and forth instantaneously. Therefore, if you were in another planet, you would use your star to communicate with our star to communicate with our solar system. So now we're talking star-to-star communication technology.
Wow.
And if you think about it, if you can store data and information in a photon, I can put data and information inside a photon. Our sun, it takes 1 million years for data or for light to travel from the core of the sun and exit out. It takes 1 million years for light to travel out. So if you were able to encode data, if you could encode photons and stick them in the middle of the sun, they're going to be there and they're going to be good for over a year or 1 million years.
Interesting, man.
Then all you would have to do is reprocess it and like put in a chip to where it just sends the information back to the core so it never comes out of the sun.
Well, yeah, this is really fascinating. I might sound a little bit, split here, but, wow. I'm looking at, I'm taking some time to look at these while you're talking. There's one here that's really fascinating. You discovered an anomaly while zooming into an image on your television, which I think is really cool. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
That is I wasn't even sure I was going to post that photo.
That's kind of a creepy looking dude, too.
I got a lot of that. I'll tell you, it came from an image of Trump. Donald Trump, wow. President Trump. He was holding a baby in a hurricane, and I took a photograph of the television. And for some reason, I was just zooming in, and in the shadows was that little figure.
That's really creepy looking. I mean, it really is, and it looks exactly. I mean, it's an object, an entity. Wow, that's pretty cool. But don't get me started on Trump. And oh my God.
I feel this way, and I hope you respect my opinion. But I feel in science that politics has no business in science or the disclosure community. We want the truth. We want to find and discover the truth. So we have to be bipartisan.
Absolutely. I mean, this is my contention. We're not going to get. There are two things we have to do in order to move forward technologically, scientifically, and socially, actually, is to, first of all, kill our egos. Egos really cause a lot of interference with moving forward. And when I say kill our egos, I mean, there are people out there that say, you know what? I want to be this guy that does this. I want to be in charge of this. I'm going to do this. I'd like to make some money off of this. Boy, let me write a book so I can, become rich. Well, that is kind of like standing in the way of the true mindset that people should have. The other thing we need to do is we need to just drop all of the prejudice. That also blocks our path forward. Lose the ego, lose the prejudice. I think pretty soon. I think if that happens, that's when we're going to make progress. People have to realize that no one can do this stuff on their own. It takes, like they say, it takes a village to raise a child, and I think that can apply to the human race and furthering scientific knowledge.
It's a great point. And what you said in the beginning of the show, you don't have to be a scientist to make a discovery.
Right.
There was a man who invented the one of the very first early microscopes. He made drapes and curtains for a living. Mm-hmm. And there was like a general store across the street, and he was always fascinated by things. And he bought this little glass set, and he started tinkering with it with different lenses, and he was able to see things that were invisible to most people. And in those days and times, when the early days, like even washing your hands to create infection, doctors looked at that like, why are you telling us what to do? We're doctors. You're not a doctor. So we're going to keep doing what we're doing. We're not going to wash our hands. So It's just amazing how people can be so cruel to new ideas and new discoveries without even just thinking for a second. There was a time where people laughed at the personal computer.
Oh, yeah.
And now we all can't live without it. It's in the palm of our hands.
Yeah, at one time, though, the personal computer was as big as a room. They had one, I think, down at either University of Penn or Drexel. I think it was University of Penn that took up an entire room full of machines, tubes, wires. It was just incredible. And now we have everything we need to communicate, to calculate, to investigate right in our hands. That's pretty wild.
It's crazy too if you think about it. Like you just said, we can communicate, we can investigate, and they're already trying to change the protocol at detecting extraterrestrial life because they wrote this protocol years ago, and now with social media, they're afraid if someone like myself makes contact and receives a message that it's going to be all over social media. It's going to be all over. They're not going to be able to control it. And I believe that scares the government because I don't really think they know how people are going to react when it's known for sure and true that we're not alone. But like Julia said in the beginning, it's not going to be that bad. Like everyone's going to just go on doing their thing. Like, oh, okay, so we're not alone. All right.
It's time to, yeah, I mean, people are getting, I think people are pretty aware that there's so much out there. I mean, not of all of it's, there's two different camps. There's a lot of different disclosure going on. But I think with Ancient Aliens and those shows, I think people have really gotten used to the idea.
Not only that, you have to, just look at the possibilities. We're in a galaxy that's 100,000 light years across and has over 100 billion stars that have planets that orbit it.
Yeah.
And that's just one galaxy. Now, there is 100 billion galaxies out there with 100 billion stars and multiple planets that go around those stars. And now, if you were to just look at the odds, we formed in the Milky Way galaxy. I'm completely sure there's other intelligent species in the Milky Way galaxy. But just for our sake, let's just say every galaxy makes one civilization. There's 100 billion civilizations out there.
At least, yeah.
They know it, but what I'm worried about is the spin. If it really happens, the government or group of people spinning it like they're bad when they're not, trying to get everybody afraid. Like that's
now,
yeah.
That there may be a reason why I, who was not a scientist in the beginning, just a regular guy who stumbled upon something unexplained. These extraterrestrials are advanced. They're not stupid. They're highly intelligent. So are they going to communicate with the government?
No, they're going to communicate with us. And they are.
Correct.
So
and that's what they're doing. And now the government is probably not able to communicate with them. So if they can't control them, they can't stop them from coming, they don't want to go to the public and say, hey, well, we know they're here, but we can't do nothing about it, because that makes them look like they don't have power.
Right.
So the extraterrestrials, they want to show a presence. They want to be a part of our life, and I believe the time has come. The technology has got to the point to where now we are about to jump over the ledge and into the new realm of civilizations. We're going to become one of our interstellar network of galaxies. Like, we're going to be able to become, intergalactic civilization, like the technology that is about to come, because there's no turning back. We're already there. The quantum technology is here. We already are there. So we are about to be on that verge that we all dreamed about as little kids, flying cars and Star Trek and Star Wars.
I thought we'd be there now. I thought, I'm 56, so when in the 60s, that's all you thought about was 2018. We're going to be having all of that from like the Jetsons and the flying cars and going to vacations on the moon.
Well, think of it this.
Yeah.
Think of it this way. there is so much technology that has been discovered that has been confiscated.
Exactly.
And hidden.
Hijacked.
Yeah, I mean, I personally think that we have the ability to use free energy. I think they have Tesla's papers, and I think they've worked on Tesla's stuff, and they can use it. We can't do it. Yeah.
I think I think everybody's going to get exposed. We're going to get our free energy.
Even electricity is a form of light. So when we're talking about visible light communication, not only could you get your electricity wireless, you could stream your data and internet and phone over the same exact power that plugs into your phone and TV.
Yeah.
It's just wild. But there is a reason why some technologies are held back. And like I said, we're on the ledge. We're at the tip. There is no after the quantum revolution, because 95% of the universe is invisible. They can't see it. It's made up of dark energy and dark matter and all these fundamental of physics. So physics is incomplete because we can only see 5% of the matter around us. So once we break into this non-physical realm, it's going to open up so many possibilities. Now, the government does have technology, but they have to have something better before they're able to release what they have. So they have to stay ahead of us. So now if we're allowed visible light communication technology, they need something that's even better than that to combat it in case it's turned against us as a weapon.
I don't even think it's the government. I think it's the black projects that are behind. Like what you see as our government is just this whole black projects thing is totally separate, but it runs everything.
Well, according to OLI, that is the extraterrestrial biological entity that my friends Ilona and Ivana Podroska send me. They're already shaken up underground. They already know that we are going to have the information at some point very soon. Right. And they're shaken up. They're wondering, they're working, they're trying to figure out what they can do to kind of put things back together again like it was, everything well hidden and us in the dark. But I don't think that's going to happen. I think that, these guys, Oli and his crew, are out there. Wow. They're communicating through Ivana, and what they're saying is pretty wild. I mean, putting it all together, they're hitting the nail on the head.
Well, if you look at ancient writings, and even religious interpretations, they all interpret like a sun. Is like rays coming off as information and knowledge. And, I believe the light has arrived. Once we understand that knowledge is in light and we tap into this knowledge, there is no turning back.
Yeah. It's the way it is with most everything. Well, I hope someday that we are able to have this radio show transmitted way out there on light. That would be pretty cool, wouldn't it?
Well, via the radio waves, it's already streaming.
We'll have some guests that are from the Pleiades.
Well, what happens is it takes so many light years for it to get out of the solar system itself. I mean, but someday someone out there a billion light years away will turn on their radio and we'll be alive again.
How about this, Michael? How about if I was in another galaxy and I had this technology that we were discussing tonight, I would send someone to Earth invisible, and I would have them, monitoring and converting all the radio waves from Earth into the quantum entangled photons, so we could be listening to you in our home galaxy.
Yeah.
Right. We could convert the radio waves into whatever we want. So the extraterrestrials are monitoring us. They're watching us. They're listening to us. So regardless, you can just look up to the sky or the sun and you can talk to them and they'll hear you.
Well, I hope they're not watching our cable because it's really horrible. Yeah. It's so violent. all
Yeah,
the
they'll probably
cable
turn it
shows.
off. Jeez. But you were talking earlier. I do think programs like Ancient Aliens and Hangar One and and movies.
That came out that.
It's kind of like it's kind of like priming us. And the problem is we don't need to be primed. We were primed long ago.
We're intelligent people.
We just have to be willing and open to see things that we're not expecting. And I can tell you, not a lot of people were expecting to see research or discovery as my own, because even I was shocked when I initially discovered it.
Yeah.
But it takes so much work to continue to communicate your results and continue to have doors slammed in your face all the time. And it's like, I'm used to it now. People tell me all the time, like, you're wasting your time. You're doing this, you're doing that. I'm going to continue to do what I have to do. And I can't give up. I can't stop because I know.
You do what you enjoy. If you enjoy doing it, do it. Keep it on, keep the Facebook, the social media, keep it up there, because, the people that want to look at that stuff will look at that stuff, and you never know where it can lead.
Yeah, and with the new experiments coming online within the next month, I believe that as long as I can continue to produce detailed images, and hopefully I have some new equipment, so I'm hoping to get even more clear detail. And I'm also working on a new device, which I can say publicly. It's just almost basically like a satellite dish. It's just like a satellite dish, but instead of receiving radio waves, I'm going to be putting a reflective material on the satellite dish and reflecting light, and I'm going to build a processor to process the data from the light. So I'm just going to reflect the light and I'm going to be working not only for the imagery, but I'm also going to be working with sound. I have been able to receive sounds through the light, and in one of the moonlight sections, I was doing the moonlight bending. I was bending the light from the moon, and very strange images appeared then. But when you're using moon, you don't have to use the metal, so all you need is water and the light and a camera. So you don't have to project the light to metal, because the moon's surface is already made of metals. So the light's hitting the metal and then reflecting back. And there was a sound. It sounded like a lion. It was two separate sounds, and it sounded like lions roar, like roaring back and forth, which I believe could have been like a low frequency sound of some type of entity trying to communicate.
Interesting.
Oh, interesting.
So and it's all coming out of light. And yes, so more things are to come.
Well, William, at this time during the show, Julia has a fantastic section on Ascension, and I'm about ready to turn it over to her. I'd like you to hang out. I'd like you to listen to what she has to say, and I'd like your feedback, your input. We kind of like our guests to join in and talk about this stuff. So, Julia.
Oh boy.
You're up and on, kid.
Sounds good.
Take it away.
Well, before I get into what I had written about, I saw on AOL today that Trump is going to release the John F. Kennedy assassination documents.
We'll see. Yeah, something's going to happen. I know it.
But I think the documents are due for 50 years, 55 years.
Yeah.
They're due to go public anyway, but people were saying they're different. I think it was Washington Post. They were thinking that the government's still going to withhold information. They're not going to show you all the documents.
The ball is in their court. And when we see that stuff, how redacted is it going to be? Will we be able to read any words at all? I mean, it's incredible.
Yeah. So anyway, I'm going to go into, I've been listening to a lot of different radio shows about Ascension and all the different stuff that's going on. And it drove me crazy because there's so many different points of view of how this is going to take place, how all the governments and all the systems are going to change so we can get to the fifth dimensional consciousness in heaven on earth. So, I meditated on my own, and I asked for guidance for just to write my, because my guidance always is, don't listen to everybody else. What's your version of heaven on earth? What's your version? What kind of life do you want? You can create it because you're the master creator. You are a piece of God. You can create. And so, I've been doing my manifestations, and so many wonderful, things have been happening. So, so I wrote this up. So let's see how this goes. The reason why it is so chaotic in so many of our systems is that the Earth is ascending to its own fifth dimensional process, and we are just coming along for the ride. The institutions that we once relied on are coming apart. Our healthcare system, education, government agencies, and economic system. They have to come apart in order to get revamped. They need to be revamped in order to properly do their job in benefiting everyone, no matter race, religion, or economic status. For too long, our justice system has always favored those with the most assets. The rich can afford great lawyers, and the poor get a court-appointed lawyer. It is not working, and that is why there are so many inner-city people in prison. How many white, educated, wealthy people do you see in prison? Not many. So we need a justice system that works for everybody fairly. We also need a healthcare system that benefits everyone. No one should go bankrupt or have to worry about making financial choices in order to treat a disease. Actually, we may not need healthcare in fifth dimensional Earth, as we will use, listen to this, Larry, we will use sound and light in healing. And they're doing that now. They're experimenting with light healing, different colors of light. Most sickness and disease are based on negative emotions that get stuck and then manifest into something physical. Excuse me. I'm going through a healing process now that is working really great. I'll discuss that on another show. The economic system is so unfair, as there are only 1% of the population that owns all the wealth. Imagine a world where wealth was dispersed evenly, no taxes or even no money, just cooperation. These new systems will evolve slowly as to not cause a major meltdown. That's what we're shooting for. The ease and grace is the prayer for a new financial exchange system. So if they move, it can't happen overnight, but if it moves slowly with ease and grace, there won't be that much transition pain, like for the middle class, like it usually is. Like, look at what happened with Russia when they all of a sudden became they had economic freedom, but nobody had any money. So the mafia kind of took over, and it's still, it's a little better than it was, but it was pretty bad for a while. So these systems have to change slowly. The education system will no longer teach by rote. There will be smaller groups of children taught by enlightened teachers. So in other words, the classroom may have one teacher might have 5 kids. And as the kids grow, let's say maybe 3rd, 4th, 5th grade, the teacher realizes there's special gifts. So then they start getting mentors that have the same gifts to help them. So some may have psychic ability. These new indigo children that are coming in, they've got psychic ability. They've got all kinds of stuff going on. And they're just amazing. So you can't have the kids sit in a classroom for 8 hours. I mean, they're giving all these kids medication to keep them sitting down. They're not supposed to sit down. They're children. They need to be outside running. And in Greece, all the classrooms were outside. Plato taught outside. They went into the woods and they measured trees and rocks. They measured the geometry of everything. I mean, if you think about it, algebra, you're seeing, I know when I was in school, I was horrible in math. And algebra meant nothing to me. Geometry meant nothing to me because it was on a book. But if they put me in the woods, see, I'm tactile. I'm a tactile person. So if you put me in the woods and you said, you need to build a bridge over that river, but you have to figure out how many pieces of logs go in there. I'm actually seeing it, I'm touching it, I'm feeling it, I'm measuring the logs, and then I'm doing the formula for that. So, that's how I could figure out calculus. But not every kid can just learn from a book. Some kids are tactile. Some kids are visual. Some kids are like, there's all these different, I have to actually be there and know what I'm doing. If it has no meaning for me, A equals B equals C, it means nothing to me until you tell me, well, what am I doing? I need to see the whole picture. So, so a lot of these schools in the new fifth dimensional consciousness, they're going to teach meditation, yoga, and along with the sciences, but there's probably going to be a new physics and new math anyway. Once we, go into that consciousness, it's mostly going to be quantum. Also, dance and music, absolutely. I mean, that goes without question. So kids would be outside experiencing nature and hands-on, so they know how to fix things. They don't really teach you how to fix things. Maybe you have like a few classes in high school, but you really need to and grow up with many languages. But we might not need that. We might have like a one language that they can do. Each country will have its own language, but there might be like, now they use English in business all over the place. There might be like a central language, which would make a lot of sense. So, so out of all the new jobs, the biggest occupation would be teacher. If you think about having 5 kids, you would need a lot of teachers, but you wouldn't have to worry about paying them because that's not, it's more of a cooperation. Not communism. That's not what it is. It's more trading, cooperation. So the teachers is definitely being in demand, which is really something new. And the government system will truly be by the people. So, instead of like the president, we would have like not a Senate, we would have like councils. And each town would have its own, or state would have its own councils. So you don't have that central control that can get, really warped. So let's see what else I have here. Oh, so these are some of the visions I have for the new Earth based on other channelings I've heard, my inner, I'm actually, this is what I wrote from my own meditation, the information that I got internally. We can create heaven on earth with our positive thoughts. In meditation, think of how it would feel to live in a peaceful world where everyone lives in abundance, in beautiful homes, clean communities, eating pure food and drinking pure water on a pure earth. Imagine how it would feel for our government systems, healthcare, education, economics, working with common sense and fairness for everyone equally. So just as we go through our own dark night of the soul, transforming our negative thoughts and emotions to positive energy, which is what I talked about in previous things, the Earth is going through that as well. The Earth is going through its own birthing process, the dark night of the soul. So all the hurricanes, volcanoes, earthquakes is Mother Earth purging all her negative stuff. So soon she's going to settle down. So our current system must be revamped now that we are coming apart, only to be reconfigured to actually work. So with Trump being in office and a lot of the look, personally, I don't care for the man, but I have to send him unconditional love, and he is turning everything upside down, and they have to be in order. I didn't realize this like last year, but now I'm realizing, we need crazy to create the chaos so we can redo everything, so we know what we want and we know what will work. So people with negative and destructive thoughts and actions can enter a fifth dimensional Earth. This is one of the things. We're all going to ascend, all of us. We're all going to come around, but at different times. So Dolores Cannon, I don't know if you guys remember her.
Oh, yeah.
I really liked her. She talked about two Earths, one remaining in 3D, one in 5D. And eventually the ones in 3D that didn't get it together, that were still doing nasty things, they eventually move over. Something else I heard is like people that listen to conspiracy theories all day and scary realities who are spreading the fear, and then people that listen to it all day long, that's the type of world they're going to get, everything they're listening to. It's almost like what you think is what you become. What you think is what you're going to draw to yourself. So people with Christ consciousness that are good people, we're not perfect. Nobody is, but we basically have Christ consciousness. We try. We know, about fifth-dimensional consciousness. We try. So these are, you get better experience. If you have higher vibration, when you're in Christ consciousness, you have higher vibration. So you're going to attract more positive stuff to you. The people in the lower vibration. But it's not like we're not any better than the negative and positive. It's not better or worse. It's just two polarities. So in fifth dimensional consciousness, they do come together. So just be careful what you guys think. Really try to, when a bad thought gets in or negativity towards somebody that's wronged you, really sit and think, feel the emotion, thank it, let it go, and transform it. And we talked about in other shows transforming it with the violet flame. So it's perfectly normal to get a bad thought about someone, but don't hang on the feeling, just let it go. And remember, when you think about somebody that did something really nasty and horrible, like we've had a few events that have happened, and when we talk about unconditional love, one way that you can do that is remember that every human being has had parents, and some of their parents have caused them a lot of harm and abuse. So in that way, because most people that do a lot of crazy stuff, usually, there are those oddballs that are from perfect families that, they're just nasty, or maybe Montauk got a hold of them. They're government-controlled soldiers, but maybe they just had a really lousy life and they just went nuts and they couldn't. So have compassion and see God in everyone. And so, in your own lives, in your own personal lives, if you really want heaven on earth, if you want to get rid of, if nothing's working for you, like you see how the economic and the banking system just doesn't work for us. Everybody's in debt except for the 1%. You just can't get ahead. The education sucks. It's like, the kids are really complaining because it's not fitting them. The indigos coming in are so much smarter than the teachers, and they remember their past lives, and they're like, this is not true. The history you're teaching is not true. So anyway, so you want the world to change. Well, you have to change yourself before anything else changes. So, we talked about that in the first couple times, I brought up the ascension process, is if you really want, I don't really know how it's going to pan out. I honestly don't. My personal view is what I expressed here is I think it's going to be gradual. And I think as everybody changes individually, the system's going to change. And we see it imploding now. So it's pretty soon that maybe there's going to be a financial reset. Maybe there's going to be, a whole new government system that really works for everybody. I see everything happening here. And the only split I see is some people perceive everything as horrible and some people perceive everything as wonderful. It's just like I at one time had a job where everybody hated it, and I really loved it because I was practicing Buddhism. I was chanting an hour a day. I was just like, my vibration was so high that it didn't affect me. So all these things that are going on now, be an observer. Don't let it affect you and bring your vibration down. You want to keep your vibration up because the more people that keep their vibration up, the more people that are focused on their heaven on earth, you just sit, you can meditate for 10 minutes. You don't have to meditate for 8 hours. Heck, I meditate sometimes for 5 minutes, and I do my business. Most of the time I like to do about a half hour, but I meditate on, I think of how it would feel. Well, how would it actually feel to have heaven on earth? What is my heaven on earth? And I just make the verbal intent. I intend. This is just my thing. You can do whatever you want to do, but this really works for me. I intend to get this job. I intend for heaven on earth, for everyone to be abundant. I say that. And then I do like a silent meditation where when we had Susie Byler on from the Creation Temple, and she really taught me how to feel abundance and all positive things coming to you in abundance comes to you when you actually match the vibration. That's the new secret to abundance. And it doesn't mean you're going to be a millionaire, but it means you get what you need to get for what you want. So let's say I've been really concentrating on how it would feel to be in a world where there was no money. And everybody was living beautifully in cooperation. And I'll tell you, it feels wonderful because I felt how it felt. There's no stress. There's absolutely no stress. And you feel connected to everybody. So I wanted to keep that vibration going because I want to bring it to this world. And then, I thought about, well, what would it be like to have and you can be material too. Like I want a little bigger house with a pool in the back. How would it feel to have that? I'm not saying that's all you do have material needs or wants or what you would think, but not that it would make you happy. But my basic meditation is for everybody to be abundant. And then I talk about each system, the education, I bring that up. So, go into the feeling. How would it feel? Because if you say, oh, God, I want this, I want that, well, you're already saying that you don't have it. So you don't have that high vibration. This is what a lot of people are saying that I've been hearing from all these. I don't know if it's Tony Robbins, but I've heard somebody else, and Abraham also, the one that goes, Abraham, they talk about you really want to feel how it would feel to get what you want, and think about that vibration and hold that vibration. And also, like, put on music you like. Keep the vibration up. Because my whole thought process, like I had my family over today, and they're like, you're always so happy. You never were. Like I was always so miserable. And I kept having, bad things happen to me, like car accidents and, being in the wrong place at the wrong time. That was like my modus operandi back in the old days. But since I've been practicing Buddhism for 20 years, and now I don't even do that. I don't chant. I actually go in and meditate. I did a Japanese form of Buddhism, but now I just go in and I do more Zen. But it's not really a religion. I do my own thing. I don't have a teacher there. So everybody can do their own thing. Because you have to get the information from inside you. What's going to make you happy? I don't think $1 million is going to make you happy, but you need to pay your bills and you need to have a job that you enjoy. So what's your joy? Why work a job you don't want? Think, if you have to work, then what would bring you joy that you can benefit the community? So there's a whole way of thinking about abundance. So that was my big spiel. It was like all these different systems, how they could change, how it would be in a fifth dimensional world. Of course, there's complete unconditional love. Now, I just heard the other day that ascension could happen in a minute, like the Bible talks. Like 1 minute, you're already there. Everybody has unconditional love. And they have to sit for a while. And all of a sudden, the energies are coming in. And everybody's all of a sudden changed. So everybody ascends at once. That's awesome. That would be great. Where everybody just has Christ consciousness all at once. So, it's really neat. We were talking about, there was like some sort of announcement from NASA, and it's really interesting, or the European Space Station. They found these two stars collided together, and then they had some sort of unprecedented signal or radiation coming out. But if you look at the picture, around the star, around the actual thing where the two stars are colliding is a tetrahedron, a blue tetrahedron. And it made me think of the blue star prophecy that Miriam Telekado was talking about.
Yes.
And that signals not the end times. It signals the end of the old world, the beginning of the new. And all those electrical energy that was moving is moving towards Earth. And I'm thinking that's the ascension. When I saw that picture, immediately I said, that's the scientific proof that ascension is happening. Those are the ascension energies. Because all this stuff, spiritual does have a quantum physics element to it. And that has a lot to do with light. And just as their, guest Larry was talking about. So all these things, there are physical things happening in the universe to make it happen. The sun is constantly giving us, is having sunspots, and there's a lot of rays coming at us, and solar flares and all kinds of stuff. And this is part of these. And every time that happens, I have to go to bed because I can't move. My body's getting all these codes every time the sun does a solar flare. So all the people that are kind of awake and aware are feeling it. The people that aren't don't know what's happening. So some people get it worse than others. So that's it. So there's a lot going on.
There is, absolutely.
A scientific thing causing it. There is a scientific thing for ascension. It is a planetary thing. So that's it.
The gravity waves are high.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great discovery just recently. Gravity waves. They have captured them. Mm-hmm. And they realize they exist. So
gravity exists.
We're floating in an ocean of space.
So whatever happens, you create your own heaven on earth. You don't let somebody tell you what your ascension's going to be. Just be it. Just keep your vibe high.
Well, William, I want you to take a few minutes and tell us how people can get to you. I know you have a Facebook and a YouTube site. Can you give people that information so that they can start contributing, I really think?
Yes, I welcome people to do the experiment on their own. You can access all the information that I discover on Facebook at Bent Light, and you look for the profile image of Albert Einstein. And, you can just look for Bent Light on YouTube, Instagram, Bent Light News on Twitter, and predominantly I'm only on Facebook.
Very good.
You could also email me through the website if you don't have a Facebook. You could go to my website at bentlights.com, and you could email me through there. And, the only thing, my main goal, people need to understand that this visible light technology exists. And like Julia was just describing, with all these different things going on, it seems like more chaos. But then there is light at the end of the tunnel.
Absolutely.
And as long as we focus on that light, the information and knowledge is in our finger. It's in our hands. We can hold it now. We have it. I just hope that people can open up their minds to understand. I tell a lot of people, I discovered these images in light, and they think I'm crazy. But what they don't understand is radio is light. You reflect it, you bounce it, you process it.
Sure.
So it's nothing out of the normal for information to be found in the visible light spectrum. And as I dug, I found that's we're currently using it for multiple platforms of information. So I just hope that people seriously look into these unexplained photographs and just try to study them, see if you could discover something. There's many more discoveries to be made. Absolutely. This is only the beginning. This is like dusting the dust off of a book. Now we're going to pick this book up and we're going to open it, and you're going to discover thousands upon thousands of other things, starting from one, which is the non-physical realm and how we can access it via light.
Wow. But listen, I'm getting a signal that we're backing up to the very, very end of our time here. So I want to thank you, William, for coming on. I'm going to keep in touch with you to try and keep up with what you're doing. And at some point, we'll have you back to tell us about anything new that you have come across. So
sounds good.
Yeah,
I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you, Michael and Julia, for having me on.
Oh, you're welcome. It was interesting.
No problem at all. And you know what? Speaking of Grant Cameron, Grant's going to be on next week, and he's going to be talking about the book Charlie Red Star, and that's going to be a good show.
Yeah, he can speak for hours. He is he's a lot of knowledge, and he knows a lot about the disclosure and how it's connected to quantum and light and extraterrestrial. And he was just going to interview Eamon Ansbro in Ireland, and he also talked to me live on the air on the L&M network that he said he would look into the discovery. I hope he does, but if he doesn't, I will continue to do what I do and hopefully get more evidence, and you guys will be seeing me pop my head around all different areas.
Beautiful. Okay, man.
Thanks so much, guys. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Have a good evening, everybody.
Okay, Julia, good night. Bill, thank you for all you do. William, we'll see you again. God bless everyone, and have a good week.